Shamara. Let me know when you can hear me. It looks like your audio hasn't connected just yet. So, hi. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. That's a pretty painting behind you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm not blurred for once.
Oh, all the
Um,
vivid colors. I like it. Bright
Thanks. I
and
finally
cheery.
have a little brighter of an office.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That's
How about
awesome.
you?
I'm good. Did you have a good week?
I did. I did. We have had a snowstorm. I live on the East Coast, and
Yeah.
so we've
Lots of
been,
snow right now here too. So,
oh,
must just be. Well,
everybody's.
actually, though, someone out west told me that normally they have a lot of snow, and he was like, "We like it because of skiing and everything." And he was like, "And we have no snow." So he was like, "You stole it from us."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we don't usually have this much snow, but every
Mhm.
few years we just get a big blast, and so
Yeah.
this is our time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess here too, because the last couple winters were very mellow, like very mild, not anything crazy. And then, today we're like trying to shovel out.
That's me. My body is really achy from 2 days of doing breaking up ice and doing all this stuff, and school's still out tomorrow for my son.
Yeah.
So we're just
Right, because the roads and
hunkered in.
everything. Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. I'm like not complaining. I love it.
Yeah.
So for once, I don't have. I switched jobs. I used to be a contractor, and now I
Mhm.
work for the government, and so like I'm off, and I'm just actually off. Like I don't have to worry about
Oh,
making up the days or making up the time.
right.
I feel like a princess.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
like, I just get to enjoy being with my son at home. That's pretty
I know
nice.
it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great. Yeah, you just get like, a winter hibernation day. So,
exactly, or week because
or week. Yeah.
Carter. Uh, so he passed, so that means so I'm gonna be off with my son tomorrow, and then I'm gonna be off just because we have like the holiday on Thursday. So I
Mhm.
might as well take Friday off too. I'm just kidding.
Might as well. I love it. You're like, just maximize the week.
Why not? Like, why go back on Friday? I'm gonna only because I'll have 1,000 emails waiting, but that's okay.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, probably. That makes sense. Eh, you get to it as soon as you can.
But I get to it.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty. So as we're diving in today, last time we had talked about basically picking like an emotion or a character type and exploring that. So did you reflect at all on maybe some emotions or character types that you might like us to explore today?
I say we did love last week. I think we should do sadness because I feel like this could
Yeah.
be really hard. It could be hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sadness can be tricky because it's such a vulnerable feeling. And I think people don't like to be that exposed. We like to feel a little more in control. So I definitely, I remember in an acting class that my teacher and classmates pointed out one day, they were like, "You don't like being vulnerable." And they were like, "And you hate being pitied." And I was like, "Oh, that's true." They were like it makes you mad. It was like
You're like,
good
thanks for
insights,
reading
guys.
me. So
Thanks. Yeah.
for me, I could see that it could be really over the top and unbelievable, and then it could also be too
Right.
subtle where no, like from a voice
Sure.
acting perspective that you
Yeah.
might not be able to
hmm
hear
Yeah,
the
I feel
sadness.
like
I don't know.
and depending on what it is you're doing, you would express it differently. So if it's comedy, we tend to over exaggerate it a bit more. And the extremes are the thing that are funny. And I think a big part of what makes comedy funny is that it's so real. That people like a big part is that people go, oh, I can relate to this, or yeah, I've been there, or oh, I've seen that. They feel like it's relatable. But the extremes are also like sort of making it absurd, like taking it too far is what makes it funny, is what makes it, something that people laugh about. But then for drama, we tend to be more genuine, more dramatic moments. And so, like, if you think about theater, live theater, it's going to be a lot more expressive, vibrant, like loud in your face because you'll have people sitting 2,000 seats away, right? But then if you have film, it
And they
tends to be a lot more subtle because the camera is right there and it like is zoomed in on your face. So you can be a lot more nuanced and subtle with that. Um, and I feel like in voiceover, it kind of depends on the context. So if I was doing maybe like a kid's cartoon, I might be a little more overly done. But I feel like kids in general tend to be more intense with their expressions of emotion. And then if I was doing something that maybe was an adult cartoon or like an anime overdub, or maybe I'm voicing a character for a show that was made in another country that's not in English originally, like Cable Girls or Squid Game, and I'm voicing a character for the English overdub, that I'm going to do a lot more genuinely, right? So depending on the context, I can make it sound different. I think commercials can kind of go either way as well. Like, what if I'm a caregiver? Like, we have a hospital and I'm doing an ad for our intensive care unit, and I'm saying, like, trust us with your loved ones. We're going to be sure to bring them the best care. Like, that's going to be a very, like, serious, compassionate, dealing with a really sad subject. Like, what if it's like, cancer patients or whatnot, right? Like something that's more sad and serious, or like a memory care unit for your elderly, grandparent that you're putting in a home or something, that kind of thing can be a little more like sad and compassionate, but it has to feel genuine. It can't be over the top and, ridiculous because that just doesn't work. So depending on the context, I think both could work, just depending on what it is that you're doing. And I also think that some people will be more loud about their sadness. So if you think of,
Yeah,
for
you can tell that
instance,
even at a funeral. Some people are like,
yeah,
I don't know if you've ever been to a black funeral, but sometimes your great aunt might go to, just, just
yeah,
some people
right,
are just quiet.
weeping and wailing, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, trust me.
right,
Um, would you mind if I'm gonna grab my
sure,
glasses because I would like to be able to
yeah,
see?
go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
It's
sorry.
great to be able to see. I understand. I'm blind as a bat without them, so.
I was like, I'm gonna wear my glasses this time so that I can read properly.
Yes. No, I get it. I get it.
Let's do
I don't know how my sister and my husband both will take off their glasses, and I'm like, I have to have mine. I can't see anything without them. But like, I think
that.
they'll take them off like to rest their eyes, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, I can see nothing without them. It's all just one big blur. So I'm like, yeah, no, I gotta have them. So I understand it's very important to have them for being able to see clearly and read the lines. All right, so we are thinking about sadness. Yeah, I even think about like like culturally, I like that you mentioned going to a black funeral. I feel like you see the same thing, like even if you think of just like church in general. So my mom loves gospel music, and she was in a gospel choir out in California, and then we lived in Alabama for a short time when I was in high school, and so we actually joined a gospel choir together. um and it was like such a rewarding experience. But we went, one of the men that was in the choir with us, he was a music director at a church, and he was like, come to my church sometime and visit. And we got there and we like walked in and people looked at us like, what are you doing here? Who are you? And he like ran to us from the front of the church. Like we were a tiny bit late because we got a little lost. And he like just ran to us with open arms, was like, these are my friends. He like brought us down to the front, sat us in the front. And I was like, wow, the whole church is like one big gospel choir. It was an amazing experience. I loved it. He was just a
Yeah.
warm person. But like they're very outwardly expressive. And I remember when I first joined the choir, one of the lady we were working on parts, and one of the ladies came over and was like, I can't hear you at all, girl. Sing. And I was like, okay. She was like,
That
you got to
sounds fun.
project, and I was not projecting, I guess. Um, but even like I think of my parents' churches because my dad, his family are Baptist, and then my mom's family, she grew up Lutheran, and so like Lutheran was very traditional and almost like a Catholic mass, like very, like you
Yes,
do
a
the
lot of
readings and you have
ritual.
responses and prayers and things, and then with the Baptist churches, I mean, my dad's dad, my grandfather was like a Bible thumping Baptist preacher, like, shouting in the church, you know? And so, like, even just the contrast there. So it's definitely, culturally, you're going to see different expressions. But then I also think personality wise, too, you see so many different expressions. Like, one of my students, Stacy, she has people in her family who are very loud and boisterous, and then she herself is just very quiet, and like she was always shy growing up. And I gave her a challenge over the holidays of giving a toast, like a holiday toast, and she was like, oh, they will be shocked. And I was like, well, you're gonna do it, all right? This is your assignment for the holiday break when I don't see you. And she was like, okay. She's been like going to Toastmasters, um
Oh, wow.
and so, yeah, like, and that's one of the things we've talked about. And I was like, man, I feel like in my family, if you weren't loud, like, you just would never get to talk. And she was like, but I'm okay with that. Like, she was like, I'm okay with just not talking. But she was like, but I want to change. Like, because she was like, I'll have friends, like, we'll go out to dinner or something. I'm like, I can't hear you, you know? And she's like, I have to be able to have a stronger presence and like at work and stuff too. So yeah, I think personality can tie a lot into it as well with having the expressiveness. But you think about like someone else I know, Carly, her family's from Long Island, and they are she's like, okay, like the nanny, she's like, that's what they're like. She's like, it's not like a joke. They're actually like that. So you think of like Fran Drescher, her mom, and her best friend, like how would they be if they were sad? Did you see about it? Oh, I need to sit down. Oh, I'm gonna eat this cake. Right? Like that's, and Carly's like, no, they're all like actually like that. So I think, the way people express can be so contrasting and different. So I think playing with the different expressions of it, I think is a beautiful way of approaching it. Do you have any characters in mind you can think of like that are iconic sad characters? Like Eeyore is one that's just kind of down all the time, right? Like your stereotypical sad character. Um, any other that just kind of come to mind that you can think of?
That are sad.
Hmm.
Um, Gosh, I should have thought about that.
What about like Fontaine from Les Mis? She's
Oh
like
God,
the mom who like, has to leave her child with
oh,
other people, and she's doing everything she can to provide, and she's like so heartbroken because she's like, oh, I was in love, and he abandoned us, and
I
she's
just
heartbroken over
did, and
that and not feeling like a good mom and having to leave her child. Like, I mean, that's like an
then there's a
epic
horrible
sad,
war going on, and the
right? A
plague, and
horrible
all. Yeah,
war. Yeah, so I think that's a
trust
good
me, I get, I
example.
get it.
Ophelia in Shakespeare is like an iconic, just like tragic, she
Yeah,
goes mad because
suicidal.
of like family betrayal and unrequited love. Like she's so heartbroken, right? So she's a good, like
Yeah,
iconic one. What about more like modern characters that we think of? Um, like, I keep thinking of like
Um,
mythology, like Hecuba in Trojan Women or something, like Greek mythology, like, ultimate loss and
kind of.
despair.
I'm reading what is it? Jane Eyre, and
Oh, yeah.
she's kind of a little bit melancholy, a little bit.
Oh, I
Like,
agree. I mean, I think she definitely has reason to be.
yeah,
Like, I have a friend who like loves Jane Eyre and I read it and I'm like, her life is
really.
not the best.
No, and okay, she's got not even just like even when she's happy, she tries
Hmm.
to make it play it down because she's afraid something
Yes.
bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
fear
so
holds her back. Yeah, exactly. So it's and I think a lot of it is like her experience previously doesn't allow her to enjoy where she's at because she's like just waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time. Yeah. So that's a good example. I love it. Yeah. So if we think of, these characters that are more like sad, tragic characters, um, let's see. What are some like key elements that you feel like carry across, like that they all have in common?
um vulnerability, I would probably
Okay,
say.
sure, yeah. That's a good one. I'm gonna type them in the chat. So they're vulnerable. Um, you
Um
mentioned fear for Jane, so
yeah,
that could be something that ties in for a lot of them.
yeah. I guess it's, dependent upon why the person is sad, right? Like if you're sad because an event occurred that's different than sad because you just have this terrible life, right? So,
Sure, yeah.
um,
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a difference between someone who's like situationally sad and someone who's just generally melancholy, like Jane. Yeah, I think that's a really good differentiation. Um, okay, so
like
then
what do you think about like Daria? Do you know that character? Daria from I want to say she had a it was like a cartoon MTV. She's very like deadpan. I feel like she has
mm,
a melancholy, like sarcastic way of interacting
yeah.
with people, and she's just like maybe I'm not thinking. Maybe I've got the wrong name. I'm thinking maybe I've got the
Yeah,
wrong name, but
I love it. Yeah, good.
very kind of like, oh, and here we are again. And of
Hmm.
course, this is what is going to happen. Just very like never excited, just I don't know. I always think it's a
Hmm.
very interesting person who can pull off a character like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I found one. I'm gonna look for those two characters, but I found one that I thought was interesting.
Okay. I was gonna say sometimes they can be angry,
Yeah,
frustrated. I mean, it's
angry,
really gonna
frustrated.
be the
I think anger and sadness are really closely tied. Okay. So this one I thought was kind of like you mentioned melancholy before. Um, but I also think she does have things like obviously things that she's I don't know, like bittersweet things that are kind of tying in here. All right, those were a couple words you had mentioned as well. Okay, so take a glance through here because I feel like there's a lot. Like she's referencing, um, like being a little girl with her dad, and then she talks about her grandmother and how like this poem makes her cry. Um, but also that it makes her angry, which you mentioned, like sadness and anger can tie together. So I thought that one was kind of interesting, and I thought we can maybe take a look at it.
Ooh, yeah, this is sad.
Yeah, right.
But in a
That's what
good
I
way.
thought too. I was like, oh.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, it's like very nuanced. I agree. Yeah. So that I was like, oh, it's interesting. It's not like one dimensional by any means. It's very like there's a lot going on.
Okay. So she reads this poem about a girl who's gathering these autumn leaves, and then it reminds her of a bunch of things, and then she's just kind of angry that somebody could affect you like that. Is
Hmm.
that what I'm
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Like it seems to me like she was reading that and then like it triggered something in her mind. Like it lit that and she's like triggered by it and it flips a switch in her. And like maybe there are things that she, like with her grandmother, I feel like she maybe hasn't fully processed or grieved certain things yet. Um, and so it's like she's actively processing them now, and that poem is helping her with those feelings. So it's not even necessarily about the poem. I think it's more about like these things that she's not dealing with that are kind of under the surface. And then that just like, rips the band-aid off the wound and she's like feeling it all.
yeah, like now she's like I said, she's mad at the author. She's well, how do you know the author doesn't care?
Right, exactly. Yeah. She's got to have someone to blame here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Okay. Um, so this is where I should be trying to think about what is what this person is like, which I know that I'm bad about doing, so I should do that. And I'm going to say she's probably 30s or 40s. I'm only saying that just because her grandmother passed
Sure,
away,
right.
kind of the age when that kind of stuff
Hmm.
starts happening.
Yeah.
Um, the fact that, this person's actually raking leaves and not blowing the leaves tells me she's probably
Hmm.
30 or 40. Anyway, um, yeah, okay. And then okay, I'll give it a try.
All right, let's see what we can come up with.
When I read she's 14, eggshell frail, she weighs no more than gathered autumn leaves, I saw me as a little girl raking leaves with my dad, jumping in the pile. But it was layered over my grandmother's last year when she was so bent over she could hardly see me, and she sobbed every time I hugged her little curved body because she had so little time left, and I could feel every bone of her spine through her clothes. I cry every time I read that poem. Pisses me off. You shouldn't be allowed to write another book if you don't care that you can do that to the people you don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the journey that you took through there because like you were saying, it's like it goes kind of all over, right? So at first it's like
Yeah, she was over.
you're talking about this poem, and then you're talking about like a really joyful moment, I would guess, like you being a little girl and jumping into the pile of leaves, hanging out with your dad.
Yeah, great.
But then It's like, but I can't stop thinking about my grandmother. I think is like it's intrusive. Like these thoughts about her,
Yeah.
like you just can't stop seeing her and thinking about her. And um, so, and for some reason you keep reading the poem. So I think there's definitely some healing happening there, but you're bitter about it because you don't want to feel these things. But something keeps bringing her back to that poem because she said every time I read it. So she keeps going back
Yeah.
to it,
Like
right? And
every
then she gets
time.
like snippy. She's like, I don't want to deal with this, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of layers there. So at the beginning, I feel like I feel like it's like kind of a sweet thing that it's like remembering when you were young and like fresh and still growing and like the joy of autumn with your dad, but then it's like the just like crippling weight of grief that just intrudes. And then at the end, you just get snippy and mad, you know, or just
Yeah.
like "Rah!" The angry part of grief comes out. So, yeah. So, with this, do you have maybe like a character inspiration for it or like an idea um, of how to approach it? Like who you think could maybe play this well or like a character from something that you think this is similar to?
And it is really weird, but Sissy Spacek just comes to mind because I don't know. I just feel like she plays a really disturbed person very well, and I could
Hmm.
see her kind of going from all these different emotions.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's much older these days, but I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about her in her heyday. I could see her playing
Sure.
it.
I like it. Yeah,
I also
good.
could see this being like a Southern person for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it could. I think too, a lot of the time, if we think of shows and movies that have some of that more personal touch and like family and hometowns, they'll set them in more like country or
Louisiana
southern
or something.
settings, right? Because they want to evoke that like slower pace and family connection. And you can have those other places, but that seems to be kind of a theme. So I think it kind of, it evokes those kind of feelings and ideas. So let's go ahead and try the character inspiration once, and then let's go ahead and try it as more of that like country twang, more like a laid back lifestyle, hometown.
Yeah, yeah. So start, you're saying
Yeah,
first,
first let's use your character inspiration first. And you're
okay,
just going to think, how would she do it? And then try to channel that.
okay. When I read she's 14, eggshell frail. She weighs no more than gathered autumn leaves. I saw me as a little girl raking leaves with my dad and jumping on the pile, but was layered over my grandmother's last year when she was so bent over she could hardly see me, and she sobbed every time I hugged her little curved body because she had so little time left. And I could feel every bone of her spine through her clothes. I cry every time I read that. It pisses me off. You shouldn't be allowed to write another book if you don't care that you can do that to the people you don't even know.
Nice, good. You had me tearing up there in the middle with the grandma. I legit was like, oh, I'm like got tears forming. Like when you're talking about her being bent over and
Yes,
her
little
little
curved
curved
body.
body. Yeah. I legit was tearing up. It was beautiful. And then at the end, you're just like, oh my gosh. Ugh.
How dare you?
So a really different ending there too. Like you definitely changed quite a bit of the way that you approached it there. Nice. All right, so now I want you to try with more of that like southern vibe, like, Sweet Home Alabama or like, deep in Louisiana Creole country.
Okay. When I read she's 14, eggshell frail, she weighs no more than gathered autumn leaves, I saw me as a little girl raking leaves with my daddy and jumping on the pile. But it was layered over my grandmother's last year when she was so bent over she could hardly see me, and she sobbed every time I hugged her little curved body because she had so little time left, and I could feel every bone of her spine through her clothes. I cry every time I read that poem. It pisses me off. You shouldn't be allowed to write another book if you don't care that you can do that to people you don't even know.
That's the first time I really heard that like they're writing another book and you're angry about that. Um, so like maybe it's someone that's like, and they're writing another one, right? Like, oh, or like, you're a big fan and you're like, gosh dang it, she makes me feel all the feelings. Um, I totally heard it that time. I think it's the language that they use. Like I think about my Uncle Mark, he's the most witty, funny man. The things that he comes up with, I can't even come up with the kind of phrases he says. They're so clever and descriptive. And this is so vividly descriptive. I think it's the language, the way it's written, that it brings out that feeling. Of like the way that they play with the descriptions and the language, the way the phrasing flows, that it really does work well with that Southern drawl. And
Southern.
yeah, I heard it totally differently that time. And like I said, like I never like it never hit me that this person is writing another book. Right? Like before it was just like, oh, you shouldn't be able to write a book if you don't care, what you do to people. But like that time was like, oh no, they're writing another one. So like you definitely were emphasizing different things and the phrase, the way it would flow came out differently. So that was really fun to hear all the different takes. And I honestly think all of those takes were very distinctly different. And depending on context, I think all of them could be valid, which is great. That's awesome. Yeah, I found this one that I feel like is very, very similar to Jane. And then I found another. Were you talking about is it Daria Morgan-Dorfer? Is that the character you're thinking of? Or
Let me look.
there's like an animated series that I was thinking maybe who's like
It's
she's
definitely
cynical,
animated.
sarcastic,
Yes,
like
that's the one.
intellectual. She's
Yeah, that's her.
witty, like
Yeah, she's
overly tragic.
1,000%.
Yeah, so I
Yeah, I'm
I think
looking
I
at her
found
right
one a script of hers as well. So I was thinking we could maybe try this one that I feel like is very like Jane-esque. And then this last one here I just pasted in is Daria. So I think that was the other character you had mentioned. So I thought it'd be fun to play with a couple characters that you were like thinking of. I always like to find
now.
characters that you already have kind of a reference for because you have such a clear, vivid picture already formed of them. Um,
Mhm.
so, um, yeah, so I feel like this one, like it's not specifically like, oh, it is Jane, and whatever his name is, but um but yeah, it doesn't like specifically say,
Oh,
but I
her
was like, this
road.
feels very much like that to me. Like
Oh
she feels
yeah, he
betrayed.
lied.
There's like she found out a truth. He was
Definitely
lied.
Jane.
Yeah, like he was hiding something from her and she feels like torn.
Yeah,
So
because he asks for her to stay, but she doesn't want to be like a mistress. because she's strong.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
Like the morals. So I was like, oh, this one works really well for that. So um let's use her as our kind of visual of who this is. And who do you think she could be talking to here? Because like, I mean, she's kind of like lonely in
I was gonna
reality, you know? Like,
say she has maybe, oh, the old lady that lives in the house with
yeah,
them, the housekeeper perhaps.
yeah, that could work. Yeah, and
Or maybe she's just writing in her journal because,
she could be, yeah,
it
like
doesn't have.
processing it herself. Like, do I do this? Do I do that? And I feel like I actually have a couple family members that'll do that. Like they'll just like talk things out loud because they externally process. I could definitely see them doing this where they're like, do I do this? And he did that.
Yeah.
And it's just a way to be able to like say it, hear it, express it, and then they
Hmm.
understand what they're going to do better and get a clearer picture. Just kind of organize it in their head. So I could see that definitely as well, that she's just like going through everything. So let's go ahead and try it and see what we come up with.
All right. I'm sorry, I feel so dramatic. Okay. All right. Because I'm thinking, I'm like, in my brain when I'm reading the story, she has a British accent, but
Oh, yeah.
my British is so awful. So I'm like, maybe I just have
What
like,
what
the
am I now? Right,
what
like
am I?
yes.
Betrayed
A
heart.
betrayed heart, shattered under the weight. Right. Yeah. So, I
But
mean,
I
I feel
feel
like
like
you
it goes
could.
so well with the words, even.
Right. Yeah. I thought that too. Like, it feels a little more like older English, like, Jane Austen-y kind of
But what
vibes.
am I now? Who says that?
Hmm. Right. But what am I now? Yeah, exactly. Like, it feels like silly to say in your regular conversational tone.
Okay. But what am I now? A betrayed heart, shattered under the weight of a truth I cannot deny. He lied to me, hid from me a reality so monstrous that it strips away the sweetness of our love. I am torn between the aching desire to stay by his side and the unyielding command of my conscience. I cannot be his. Not like this.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like too, like it could be kind of golden age of Hollywood, like it could be like a Katharine Hepburn-y kind of vibe. So I feel like you could pick, whatever time period you want, whatever kind of accent or whatnot. But it does feel a little more like something that happened at least, 50 years ago
Oh, for
at this
And I think
point.
if I practice, and it's more just like what do the words sound like, and
Hmm.
I would need to practice this one.
Yeah. So if you were in a similar situation to her, like a modern day situation, what would you say in like modern language as her?
I would say, you know, and how am I supposed to think about this? I've been betrayed. He lied to me, and what he's done has just taken away the love that I thought existed between us, and
Hmm.
but I am torn between wanting to be with him and then knowing that I should not.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah, good. Yeah. So it's
Something like
more of like
that.
conversational language. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I mean, yeah,
You're
we
right.
had a real connection, but then like I find out he's been lying to me and hiding things from me. How can I trust him after that? And like, I mean, it seems like he was this wonderful, sweet guy, and now I know this stuff that makes me be like, whoa, do I even know you? And then I feel like a really crappy person. Like, how can I just ignore this and choose to be with someone who's not mine in the first place? Like I can't do that to somebody else, so like, yeah, just saying it in your language. So I like that you're able to put that together. And the thing is, you would say it one way, I would say it another way, another person's going to say it another way, but that helps us to figure out the meaning of the words, right? Like the weight of them and what they mean in the context. So then if I can say these words with that kind of energy and attitude, but what am I now? A betrayed heart, shattered under the weight of a truth I cannot deny. He lied to me, hid from me a reality so monstrous that it strips away the sweetness of our love. Right? Like, so if you just put the kind of like energy and inflection that you would have with your language, then it usually will land and still have that same kind of um, drive to it and meaning. Like, it'll still capture that mm, momentum and spirit of it, and it'll land. Yeah. So can we try that? So try like thinking about your words and what you would say. And then with that kind of energy and attitude, you're going to say the words that are written out.
All right. But what am I now? A betrayed heart, shattered under the weight of a truth I cannot deny? He lied to me, hid from me a reality so monstrous that it strips away the sweetness of our love. I am torn between the aching desire to stay by his side and the unyielding command of my conscience. I cannot be his. Not like this.
Nice. Yeah.
Uh,
I loved that last time. You're like, not like this. No way, Jose. I'm out of here. Yeah, I like it. That was nice. Yeah, it was like surprising too, because I was like, whoa, a little more
well, you
attitude
bet
there.
be myself.
I like it. Yes. All right. So good. I want you to keep exploring that concept of think about if you were going to talk about it in your words. So that's paraphrasing, basically, like summarizing and paraphrasing it, putting it in your words with your attitude, your language, and just improvising as though you were in that same situation. I think that's going to be a really good exercise for you to keep playing with. All right. So I want you to take a look here at the Daria one. This, a lot of the like vulnerability you were mentioning, and like she's talking about trying to build up walls, but then she's like, what if it's my fault that I'm alone? Maybe I'm doing this myself. um, yeah, like
Yeah,
I feel like she's giving herself like real talk, tough love.
you say this. Grown up Dario. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Somebody said that they're making a movie. They want to make a
Oh.
movie of her, so I'll be curious to see how
That's
that
always
goes.
fun to see something like and be like, okay, are they gonna kind of keep it the same? Is it gonna be a really different approach? Yeah, that will be cool to see. All right, so let's go ahead and try it. Very
Okay.
self-reflective.
All
Yeah.
right. By the way, like she's super dry and super just. Uh, this one is going to be hard for me just
Kind
because
of
it's
like Zoe Deschanel's character in Failure to Launch. She's like, or like
again. I mean, I like her.
she's like
I could see her
in that
appealing.
movie, I love her in that movie. She's hilarious. She's my favorite part of that movie. Like when I saw it, I was like, she's my favorite because she's so just oh, like April in Parks and Rec, kind of like that vibe.
See, and that's a show I never
Oh, it's
watched. I got to
okay.
watch
Yeah,
that
she's
one.
like the intern who's just like nah, 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 all the time. Or like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Xanthopy in Kimmy Schmidt, the like teenage stepdaughter of the blonde lady in that. She's just like, ugh, Kimmy, you're so uncool. Why are you like this? I'm gonna go
Very
pretend to
dark.
drink at a party with my friends, even though I don't do that, but don't tell anyone. That's Zan. Yeah, I love characters like that. They're very They're great. Yeah, so that kind of like attitude. Yeah, I like it. Let's try
Okay,
it.
so here I go. Of course, that's stupid. Belonging means opening up, and opening up means giving people permission to poke at your weaknesses. No thanks. I've worked too hard building this wall of sarcasm and indifference. It's not much, but it's mine. Still, there's this tiny voice in the back of my head that whispers, what if you're wrong? What if the world isn't as shallow as it seems? What if I'm the one keeping myself apart?
Nice.
Boring, I know. I'll have to
No,
work on this
yeah.
one. Ah,
Right. That she's like,
I'm like,
what
oh,
if it's
so bad.
me? What
Oh
if
my
I'm the one doing this? Yeah, yeah, I feel like you can play up like with the voice, letting it be a little like deeper, slower, let it kind of sit in the vocal fry a little bit more. Like, of course, that's stupid. And let it kind of like slide down
God.
at the ends of the phrases. Belonging means opening up, right? Where it slides
Okay.
down at the end. I would play a little more with the voice. I think that's going to add a lot to it. So slowing down, like let it breathe a little bit more. Don't be in a rush to get to the next line. Just take your time. Low, chesty resonance, descending phrases, like dropping off at the end. Yeah. Can we try it again?
Sure. This is really hard. Okay. Of course, that's stupid. Belonging means opening up, and opening up means giving people permission to poke at your weaknesses. No thanks. I've worked too hard building this wall of sarcasm and indifference. It's not much, but it's mine. Still, there's this tiny voice in the back of my head that whispers, oh, what if you're wrong? What if the world isn't as shallow as it seems? What if I'm the one keeping myself apart?
I love the pacing changes there too, like the dramatic pause and then the speed change at the end was really strong. I love the no thanks moment. That was great. The it's not much but it's mine. Oh, that was a great moment. And I really loved like when you're asking the questions, it genuinely feels like you're asking, that you're like seeking an answer, that it's not rhetorical, that you're like I'm really asking. Um and having the pacing change there, like with the pauses and it being like slower and then faster, worked really beautifully. So yeah, I really like that. So sometimes just like getting out of the, oh, I have to like feel everything and just being like, okay, what am I gonna do with this character? And then it's like, ah, there it is. Yeah. So sometimes like just giving yourself like a task, like I'm gonna do this, this, and this with this character, and then just doing that can work beautifully. And it's like, oh, I didn't have to do so much character work and like background digging and whatnot. Just like going, okay, I'm gonna do these physical things with my voice, and then it just kind of comes out, and you're like, there we go. And I felt like that happened there. That was great. Um, and it was a really good illustration of how the pauses, those moments of silence, are really weighty. And also a really good example of how the pacing changes can just be so, so strong. So, really nice there. Yeah, good. So, what was maybe your number one takeaway from this? Because these were very different monologues and also very different characters, I felt like. And that first one we did in three distinctly different ways as well. So, what's something that's like a key takeaway for all of it that you feel like for every single one of them, it's like, okay, this is kind of like a truth that just kind of sticks with you through all of these characters.
Um, for each one, I would say that I need to read them several times.
Oh, sure.
That I
Yeah.
need to practice. That I need to practice. Yeah,
Hmm.
I feel like,
Yeah.
especially especially if I'm going to be thinking of like creating like a character voice or
Right.
to
Hmm.
envision something that already
Yeah.
exists in my mind.
Hmm.
Different, I think, when I'm just doing whatever, but it
Hmm.
was more difficult thinking, okay, I'm trying to be a little bit like Jane and I'm trying to be like
Yeah.
Daria. So it's like, oh, I need to
Right.
practice because
The layers. Hmm.
I'm feeling like, ooh, I'm doing such a crappy job because I'm trying to compare myself
Yeah.
to what I,
Mm.
those people to be like. So if I'm trying to do something,
Yeah.
if I'm trying to mimic them, then I need
Yeah.
them
I
a
like
bit
how
more.
you mentioned too, trying to like imitate or recreate, because that's very different from creating a character all your own. Um, I actually have a friend who played a character that someone else had previously played, and then they were playing them like in a newer thing. And so, like, it was really interesting too, because I talked to like one person they know who was like, I don't even hear them when I watch the show. Like, I can't even like tell it's them. And then I talked to another person who was like, Psh, of course I can tell it's them, you know? Um, but it's like he had to sort of manufacture and like turn himself into something else, which is a very different experience than creating a character all your own. So I really like that you pointed that out. And I would say my minimum that I ever will do is read it through silently once, read it through out loud once, just like in my regular voice, and then read it through once, trying to do more of the characterization and nuance. Like that's my absolute minimum before I would ever try to like record it or do anything with it. And that would be like, all right, I've got 20 auditions to get done, like let's get on it, Um, and I don't really care that much about this one.
Are you
That
like
kind of thing.
when you are auditioning, are you playing more like the numbers game? Like you're like, I'm just gonna submit 30 and then hope that a few of them take, or is it
So I would say numbers matter. Like, if you only audition for two things a month, you're probably not gonna get jobs. Like it's gonna be really, few and far between. I would say, I mean, I actually like lately have been doing like my percentage of what I've been hired for is probably like 10% of what I've been auditioning for like in the last year, which is good. But I think also I've gotten better at choosing what to audition for. And like fine tuning like what do I want to spend my time auditioning for because I know what I'm more likely to be cast as. And then also the more like people get to know you and like you get a presence on platforms and whatnot, um, they'll just start to be like, oh, you've auditioned for me before. I remember you from then. Like, and you start to kind of stick a little bit better in their head. Um, so like I would say getting 10% of the things you audition for is good. Like you can audition for 200 things and get one. Um, so, I mean, you do have to do a lot of auditioning. I would say I take a lot more time if it's something from my agents. So, if they send me something, it's already something that like they and the client have already gone through and been like, okay, who fits these parameters? And it's a lot more specific. So, I already know that I'm kind of what they're looking for or looking
in the
at. Hmm. And then if it's more like an audition website, sometimes it's not very specific. Like they're just like any female. And they don't tell you what to do with it. And you're like, probably not going to get this one. They're going to be like 3,000 people who audition for you. You might not even hear mine. Whereas ones that are a lot more specific, I probably take a little more time with. So if they're kind of vague, I'm like, you didn't take much time doing the posting, and if it doesn't pay exceptionally well, like I'm like, I'll like just record something real quick and send it. Maybe I'll get it. It's kind of like throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks. Um, so it kind of depends on what it is, but I would say you have to audition a lot and you want to bring your best that you can. But I could spend like 6 hours on one audition, and I'm like, that is not an effective use of my time for something that statistically will probably not be cast for. So I have other things to do, you know? Like if I did that today, I've got like 10 projects right now that need recording. So if I spent that much time doing one audition, like that's not serving me in my career very well. I'd be better served to spend that time working on an actual project. So, I would say I probably, if I gave like a standard, what I probably would do would be like read it through silently once, think about what I want to do, read through out loud once just in my normal voice. And then I'm probably gonna like read through it again with the characterization I think I want. Then I'm gonna record that. And then I'm gonna listen to it. I'll probably record it again, listen to it, record it again. So usually it would probably be like practice it, like read it once, read it out loud once, read it with the characterization, and then record it 3 times, and then pick the one of the three that I like the best to submit. Would be probably like a standard way that I would probably approach a typical audition. But if it is from my agents, I try to be a little more dedicated and diligent and spend more time on it, is what I would say. Because they work hard for me, you know? I want to work hard for them too. They're good to me, so I gotta be good to them too. Bring my best for them. So, but yeah, I think, obviously, if you were gonna submit it for an audition or something, if we do it twice, that's not very much. So I probably would recommend doing it a few more times. I just got like a tickle in my throat for no reason. I don't know what it is. Whatever. Alrighty. Well, cool. So think about what emotion you might like to explore next time. Maybe some characters you might like to explore. And we'll dive back in. Nice work today,
Sounds
Shamara.
good. Good to see you.
All right, I'll see you
Bye.
later. Bye.